Captain Deho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the mining station corridors. The artificial gravity made his boots clank against the metal floors. Outside the thick windows, the orange glow of Kepler 402c stretched across the horizon. This rocky planet had been his home for 3 years now. The mining operation was simple work. Humans dug deep into the planet's crust and pulled out rare metals. The Velnari Empire paid good credits for these materials. They used the metals to build their beautiful cities and powerful ships. Captain Deho never questioned why they needed so much metal. He just made sure his crew did their job. His communication device buzzed. The sound echoed through the empty hallway. Deho pressed the button and heard the voice of his second-in-command, Lieutenant Jamin. "Captain, we're getting strange reports from the inner systems," Jamin said. His voice sounded worried. "Something big is happening near the galactic core." Deho hurried to the command center. The room was filled with screens showing mining, data and ship positions. 3 other crew members sat at their stations. They all looked nervous. "What kind of reports?" Deho asked. Engineer Siwoo turned from his console. His face was pale. "Sir, entire star systems are going dark. The Velnari are sending emergency signals across all channels." Deho felt his stomach drop. In 300 years, the galaxy had known peace. The Velnari Empire controlled most of the inner worlds. Their allies, the crystal-like Kethmori, provided advanced technology. Smaller species like humans worked on the outer edges, happy to have steady jobs and protection. "Show me the reports," Deho ordered. The main screen lit up with a galactic map. Red dots marked dead systems. As they watched, more dots appeared. The pattern was clear. Something was moving through space, destroying everything in its path. Siwoo's hand shook as he worked his controls. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission from the Coalition Emergency Network. They're calling it a Code Black situation." Code Black meant the end of civilization. Deho had never heard those words used in a real emergency. The transmission crackled to life. A Velnari voice spoke in the common galactic language. The words were calm, but Deho could hear fear underneath. "All Coalition members, this is High Command. We face an invasion from outside our galaxy. The enemy calls themselves the Devourers. They consume entire worlds and move to the next target. Our weapons have little effect against their ships." The transmission paused. In that silence, Deho heard his crew breathing heavily. All military units are ordered to fall back to defensive positions around core worlds. Civilian populations should prepare for possible evacuation. The message ended. The mining station fell silent, except for the hum of machinery. Lieutenant Jamin broke the silence. "Sir, what are our orders?" Deho stared at the galactic map. More red dots appeared as they watched. The destruction was moving toward the outer rim where human colonies sat undefended. 2 days later, the reports became worse. Entire Velnari fleets disappeared without sending distress signals. The Kethmori crystal cities, which had stood for millions of years, cracked and died in hours. Dr. Yunji arrived on the station aboard a medical transport. She was a xenobiologist who studied alien life forms. Her ship carried refugees from a destroyed research station. "I saw them," she told Deho in his private office. "The Devourers aren't like anything we've encountered before." She activated a portable hologram projector. The image showed creatures that made Deho's skin crawl. They looked like a mix of machine and living tissue. Their ships were grown rather than built. Thousands of tentacles writhed around hulls covered in eyes and teeth. "They don't just destroy," Dr. Yunji continued. "They eat everything. Planets, ships, space stations, even the energy from dying stars." Deho studied the horrible images. "How do we fight something like this?" "I don't think we can. The Velnari tried everything. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity bombs. Nothing worked. The creatures adapt to whatever hits them." More bad news came over the following days. The Devourers had reached the middle systems. Colonies that housed billions of people sent their last messages before going silent. Then came word that changed everything. Diplomatic Envoy Hana contacted the station from her ship near the galactic capital. Her face on the screen looked tired and afraid. Captain Deho, I have news from the emergency council meeting. The remaining coalition leaders have made a decision. Deho felt his heart sink. What decision? They're abandoning the galaxy. The Velnari have ships that can reach other galaxies. They plan to evacuate the core species and seal the passage behind them. What about the colonies? What about Earth? Hana's eyes filled with tears. Humans are not included in the evacuation. The council voted that we lack the technology to be worth saving. We would slow down their escape. The words hit Deho like a physical blow. They're leaving us to die? Admiral Youngsu argued for our inclusion. He presented our service records, our loyalty, our contributions to the coalition. The Velnari ambassador dismissed him. He said humans were too primitive to contribute to their new civilization. Deho slammed his fist on the desk. The anger surprised him. For years, humans had been grateful for their place in the galaxy. They had accepted being treated as junior partners. Now they learned the truth about their worth to their allies. How long do we have? Deho asked. The evacuation fleets are already launching. They'll be gone within the week. After that, we're on our own. Over the next 5 days, the crew of the mining station watched their former protectors flee. Massive Velnari ships passed through their system without stopping. The beautiful vessels that once symbolized galactic unity now looked like the ships of cowards. On the 7th day, the last coalition ship disappeared into hyperspace. 20 billion humans across 70 worlds found themselves alone in a galaxy, being consumed by nightmares. Siwu managed to establish communication with other human colonies. The news was the same everywhere. No help was coming. No rescue ships would arrive. That night, Captain Deho stood in his quarters looking out at the alien stars. For 3 centuries, humans had been miners, farmers, and engineers. They had built what others designed. They had followed orders and stayed quiet. But something was awakening in Deho's chest. It wasn't fear or despair like their alien allies had felt. It was something hotter and more dangerous. It was rage. The Devourers thought they would find easy prey in abandoned human space. Their alien allies thought humans would die quietly and quickly. Both groups were about to learn they had made a terrible mistake. The first week without the coalition was the longest in human history. Engineer Siwu worked 18 hours each day trying to keep communication networks running between the scattered human colonies. His fingers were raw from typing messages, and his eyes burned from staring at screens. The news that came through the networks was always bad. The Devourers had found human space, and they were hungry. New Sol Colony went dark on the 3rd day. The last transmission was a woman screaming about ships that looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. Then silence. Harmony Station, a farming colony with 2 million people, lasted 6 hours longer. Their final message was simple. They're eating everything. The crops, the soil, even the air. God help us all. Captain Deho read each report with growing fury. His mining station had become an unofficial command center for the Outer Rim colonies. Refugees arrived daily with stories that made hardened miners cry. A transport ship from the Kepler system brought terrible news. Commander Boram, a tough woman who had served in the Coalition Navy, stood in the briefing room with her uniform, torn and dirty. The Devourers don't just kill, she told the gathered humans. They collect living beings. I saw them take children and load them onto their ships. They keep people alive for some reason. Dr. Yunji, who had been studying the few Devourer samples they could find, raised her hand. Commander, did you observe their behavior patterns? How do they choose targets? They seem to prefer populated areas. The more people screaming, the faster they move. It's like they feed on fear itself. Siwu looked up from his communication console. I've been tracking their movement patterns. They consume an average of 3 human colonies per day. At this rate, we have maybe 40 days before they reach Earth itself. The room fell silent. Earth was the human homeworld, but it was also where most of the remaining population lived. 12 billion people called it home. President Namgil's face appeared on the main screen via emergency broadcast from Earth. He looked tired, but his voice was steady. Behind him stood Admiral Young-Soo, the same man who had tried to convince the aliens to save humanity. "My fellow humans," President Nam-gil began. "We face the darkest hour in our species' history. Our allies have abandoned us. Our enemies consider us prey. But I want to share something with you that our former friends never understood about humanity." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "We do not go gentle into that good night. We do not surrender. We do not run." Admiral Young-Soo stepped forward. "Every human colony, station, and ship is hereby ordered to prepare for war. We will not evacuate. We will not hide. We will make these creatures regret the day they entered our galaxy." The broadcast ended, but its effect was immediate. Across human space, something changed. Where other species had felt despair, humans felt something different. They felt angry. On the mining station, Captain Dae-ho called his crew together. Engineer Sai-woo, Lieutenant Jamin, Dr. Yoon-ji, and 12 others gathered in the mess hall. "I know you all heard the President's message," Dae-ho said. "I also know that most of you have families on Earth or other colonies. If anyone wants to take a ship and try to reach them, I won't stop you." Nobody moved. "In that case, we have work to do. This mining station is about to become something the galaxy has never seen. We're going to build weapons." Dr. Yoon-ji had been working on something. In her laboratory, she emerged 3 days later with important news. "I've discovered something about the Devourers," she announced. "They're not as invincible as we thought." She activated her hologram projector. The image showed a Devourer cell under high magnification. Their adaptive abilities have a weakness. When exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies, their cells become confused. They can't adapt fast enough if you hit them with multiple different frequencies at once. Sai-woo studied the data. "So instead of one big weapon that they can adapt to, we need lots of small weapons that keep changing." "Exactly, but there's more. I've been analyzing their behavior patterns, and I think they feed on more than just physical matter. They consume emotions. Fear makes them stronger. Despair feeds them." Lieutenant Jamin frowned. "What happens if they encounter someone who isn't afraid?" Dr. Yoon-ji smiled for the first time in weeks. "I think we're about to find out." The mining equipment on the station was designed to crack open asteroids and extract metals. With some creative engineering, it could crack open other things too. Captain Dae-ho supervised the conversion of mining lasers into weapons. The tools that had once pulled rare metals from rock were rebuilt to fire electromagnetic pulses at multiple frequencies. Other human colonies were doing the same thing. Farming colonies turned their crop processing plants into ammunition factories. Transport ships became makeshift warships. Research stations became weapons laboratories. The work was hard and dangerous. Nobody had experience building military equipment. They learned by making mistakes that sometimes killed people. But they kept working. 2 weeks after the President's broadcast, the first human counterattack was ready. The target was a small Devourer scouting force that had entered the Ross system. 3 bioships, each the size of a city, were consuming the gas giant's moons. Captain Minna led the attack with 12 converted mining ships. Her voice came over the communication network to every human colony. "This is for New Seoul. This is for Harmony Station. This is for every human child they've taken." The battle lasted 4 hours. The humans lost 8 ships. But when it was over, one of the Devourer vessels was dead and the other 2 were fleeing. For the first time since the invasion began, the monsters had retreated. News of the victory spread through human space like wildfire. Siwoo coordinated the communication networks as reports flooded in. Every human colony was celebrating. Not because they had won the war, but because they had proven something important. The Devourers could be hurt. Dr. Yoon-ji studied the battle recordings with growing excitement. "Look at this," she told Captain Dae-ho. "When our ships attacked, the Devourers' bio-readings changed. Their electromagnetic signatures became erratic." "What does that mean?" "It means they felt something they've never experienced before. The other species they encountered always felt fear, but our people felt rage, and somehow that hurt them. President Namgil's second broadcast came that night. This time he wasn't just addressing human colonies. Somehow the transmission reached enslaved species throughout Devourer space. To all sentient beings who can hear this message, my name is Namgil, President of the Human Republic. We know you are prisoners. We know you suffer. We are coming for you. His voice grew harder. The Devourers made a mistake when they entered our galaxy. They thought they would find easy prey. Instead, they found humanity. And we are very, very angry. The message ended with a promise that would echo across the galaxy. We will free you all. The victory at Ross System changed everything for humanity. Word spread to every human colony that the Devourers could be beaten. But Captain De Ho knew one small victory meant nothing against an enemy that had consumed entire galaxies. Dr. Yunji worked day and night in her laboratory studying the wreckage from the battle. She had collected pieces of destroyed Devourer bioships and was learning their secrets. Captain, you need to see this, she called out on the fourth day. De Ho found her standing over a table covered with alien flesh and metal. The pieces still moved slightly, even though they were cut from the main organism. These creatures are more complex than we thought, Dr. Yunji explained. They're not just eating matter and energy. Look at these nerve clusters. She pointed to sections that pulsed with dim light. They're feeding on emotions. Fear makes them grow stronger. Despair helps them reproduce faster. That's why they keep prisoners alive instead of just killing everyone immediately. De Ho studied the disgusting samples. What happens when they encounter different emotions? That's what I've been testing. When I exposed these samples to recordings of human anger, they started dying. Our rage is literally poison to them. This discovery reached Earth within hours. Admiral Young-Soo immediately ordered every human colony to begin a new type of warfare. They would not just build weapons, they would weaponize human emotion itself. Lieutenant Do-yoon led the development of new missile systems on Mars. The Red Planet had become humanity's largest weapons factory. Instead of elegant energy weapons like their former alien allies preferred, humans built crude but effective tools of destruction. We're calling them screamers, Do-yoon explained to his engineering team. They're kinetic projectiles that broadcast human voices while they fly toward the target. The missiles carried recordings of humans expressing pure rage and hatred toward the Devourers. Each warhead contained speakers that would play these sounds at frequencies that caused maximum pain to Devourer nervous systems. Meanwhile, Captain Minna was developing new tactics on Europa Station. Where alien fleets had used massive dreadnoughts with small crews, humans built thousands of small ships with angry crews. Every ship needs at least one person who's lost family to the Devourers, Minna told her pilots. Their rage will be our strongest weapon. The human fleet grew rapidly, but it looked nothing like the elegant coalition navies of the past. Human ships were ugly, brutal, and covered with weapons that served only one purpose: to cause suffering. The first major test came at the Tau Ceti system. A large Devourer fleet had arrived to consume the 4 planets in the system. Intelligence. Reports said they had 50 bioships and were already feeding on the outer planets' moons. Admiral Young-Soo led the human fleet personally. He brought 3,000 ships filled with 15,000 of the angriest humans in the galaxy. Many had watched their families die. Others had lost their homeworlds. All of them wanted revenge. The battle began at dawn, Tau Ceti time. The Devourers expected easy prey like they had found with other species. Instead, they encountered something that made their bioships recoil in confusion. Human ships broadcast pure hatred on all frequencies. The screamer missiles filled space with the voices of grieving mothers and furious fathers. Every explosion carried the electromagnetic signature of human rage. For 6 hours, the two fleets tore each other apart. Human ships died by the hundreds, but they kept coming. Every time a Devourer thought it had adapted to human weapons, humans changed frequency and attacked differently. Researcher Hyun-woo monitored the battle from a safe distance. His job was to study how the Devourers reacted to human tactics. What he saw amazed him. "Admiral, the enemy bioships are showing signs of stress we've never recorded before. he reported. Their electromagnetic readings indicate something like pain or fear. Are you telling me these monsters are afraid? Admiral Young-Soo asked. I think so, sir. They're used to feeding on the fear of their prey, but our emotions are making them sick. By the end of the battle, humanity had lost 80% of its ships, but for the first time in galactic history, a devourer fleet had retreated instead of consuming everything in sight. The victory at Tau Ceti proved that humans could fight the devourers on equal terms, but it also revealed something else. Strange. Transmissions began reaching human space from across the galaxy. Siwu, now coordinating communications for all human colonies, received the first message on a frequency that shouldn't have existed. Please help us, the voice said in broken galactic common language. We are Keth Mori. Devourers keep us in feeding chambers. We heard your ships fought them. Please help us. More messages followed. The Rigel species, enslaved for 3,000 years. The Procyon Collective kept as living batteries for devourer ships. Dozens of species that had been considered extinct were still alive, trapped in the bellies of bioships and begging for rescue. Dr. Yunji studied these transmissions with growing horror and rage. Captain, they don't just kill civilizations. They keep samples alive to feed on their emotions for centuries. There might be millions of prisoners out there. President Namgil addressed humanity again from Earth. This time his message went out on every frequency, reaching even the enslaved, aliens. We have learned that our enemy doesn't just destroy. They torture. They enslave. They feed on suffering itself. His voice grew colder. This is no longer about defending human space. This is about justice. We will hunt down every devourer in this galaxy. We will free every prisoner. We will make them pay for every life they've taken. The message ended with a declaration that shocked even hardened human military leaders. From this day forward, humanity declares war not just on the devourers in our galaxy, but on their entire species wherever they exist. We will follow them to the edge of the universe if necessary. Lieutenant Jae-min, who had stayed with Captain Daeho throughout the crisis, shook his head in wonder. Sir, 6 months ago we were mining asteroids. Now we're declaring war on an intergalactic empire. Captain Daeho watched the latest reports of human victories across the Outer Rim. Colony after colony was being liberated. Devourer fleets were retreating for the first time in their species' history. 6 months ago we thought we were weak, Daeho replied. We thought we needed protection from stronger species, but we've learned something important about ourselves. He turned to face his crew, all of whom had been transformed by months of warfare. We're not the weakest species in the galaxy. We're the angriest. And anger, it turns out, is the most powerful force in the universe. News of humanity's victories spread through both human space and the Devourer Collective like wildfire. What had started as a desperate defense was becoming something much larger. The enslaved species throughout the galaxy were sending more messages, and each one made the humans angrier. Commander So Young had been a transport pilot before the war. Now she led the first Liberation Fleet, a collection of 500 human ships designed for a specific mission, freeing prisoners from devourer vessels. Her first target was the Vega system, where intelligence reports suggested the devourers were keeping thousands of captured beings. The system had been dead for 50 years, consumed early in the devourer expansion into the galaxy. Remember, So Young told her pilots before the attack, we're not just here to kill devourers. We're here to save people who have been suffering for decades. Every minute we waste is another minute of torture for them. When the human fleet arrived at Vega, they found something that made veteran soldiers sick. The devourers had built massive bioships that were part vessel and part prison. Thousands of creatures from dozens of species were held in chambers designed to maximize their fear and despair. The devourers fed on these emotions like humans ate food. The prisoners were kept alive but hopeless, generating a constant supply of the negative feelings that powered devourer technology. So Young's fleet attacked with a fury that surprised even the humans themselves. They used new weapons developed specifically for rescue operations. Instead of trying to destroy the bioships completely, they cut them apart carefully to reach the prisoner chambers. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, 12,000 beings had been freed from lives of endless torture. Many were species that the galaxy had thought extinct. Others were survivors from worlds consumed decades earlier. An elderly Kethamori named Veltar was among the rescued. His people had been crystal-like beings known for their peaceful nature. The Devourers had kept him alive for 30 years, feeding on his sadness for his destroyed homeworld. "Your species," he told Commander So Young with tears in his ancient eyes. "You are the first to come for us, the first to fight back successfully. How is this possible?" So Young helped him to the medical bay where human doctors were treating the rescued prisoners. "We got angry," she said simply. But the rescue at Vega revealed the true scope of the horror. Dr. Yunji, who had come along to study Devourer bioships, made a discovery that changed everything. "Commander, you need to see this," she called from inside a captured bioship. So Young found her standing in a chamber filled with strange organic computers. The walls pulsed with veins carrying some kind of fluid, and screens showed images from across the galaxy. "This appears to be a communication center," Dr. Yunji explained. "I've been able to access their data systems. The scope of their empire is beyond what we imagined." The screens showed star maps of not just their galaxy, but dozens of others. Each one was marked with symbols indicating the level of consumption. Most were completely red, meaning everything had been eaten. "How many species have they destroyed?" So Young asked. "Millions. But that's not the worst part. Look at this data on prisoner populations." New screens lit up showing numbers that made So Young feel sick. In their galaxy alone, the Devourers were holding over 2 billion sentient beings, in feeding chambers scattered across thousands of bioships. 2 billion prisoners, So Young whispered. "We've saved 12,000. We have so much work to do." The data from Vega reached Earth within days. President Namgil convened an emergency council of all human military leaders. Admiral Young-Soo, Captain Daeho, Commander So Young, and dozens of others gathered via hologram. "The numbers are staggering," President Namgil began. "We're not just fighting an invasion anymore. We're fighting to save entire civilizations that have been enslaved for millennia." Admiral Young-Soo studied the galactic maps. "Sir, even with our current rate of ship production, it would take us 50 years to reach all the prisoner camps. And that assumes the Devourers don't adapt to our tactics." "Then we need to change our approach," Commander So Young said. "We can't just react to their movements. We need to hunt them down systematically." Captain Daeho, who had become an expert on Devourer psychology, had an idea. "What if we use their own nature against them? They're used to prey that runs away or gives up. What if we become the hunters instead?" The strategy that emerged was unlike anything seen in galactic warfare. Instead of defending territory, humanity would launch continuous offensive operations. They would hunt down every Devourer bioship, destroy every feeding station, and rescue every prisoner. Commander Inho led the most extreme example of this new approach. His fleet specialized in complete extermination operations. When they found Devourer spawn hiding in asteroid fields, they cracked every rock in the system until nothing remained alive. The Devourers have had millions of years to perfect the art of causing suffering, Inho told his crews before each mission. "We're going to perfect the art of ending them." His methods were brutal but effective. Human ships would surround entire systems and methodically hunt down every Devourer organism. They used new scanning technology to find hidden spawn, deployed nanobots that sought out Devourer DNA, and employed weapons specifically designed to cause maximum pain to their targets. The psychological effect on the Devourers was devastating. For the first time in their species' existence, they were experiencing what their victims had felt, the terror of being hunted. Dr. Yunji, studying captured Devourer specimens, made another important discovery. Captain Daeho, their collective consciousness is showing signs of something we've never seen before. What kind of signs? Fear. Real, genuine terror. They're starting to avoid systems where humans have been active. Some of their bioships are even changing course to flee from our scouts. The news was incredible. The devourers who had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years were learning to be afraid. But humanity was not satisfied with just making their enemies afraid. They wanted justice for every world that had been consumed, every species that had been enslaved, every life that had been lost. Engineer Siwu, now coordinating intelligence across all human operations, brought disturbing news to the Command Council. We've intercepted Devour communications that reveal the location of their primary feeding stations. These are massive installations where they keep their most valuable prisoners, the beings who generate the strongest emotions. The screens showed images of biostructures the size of moons, each one holding millions of captured sentients in conditions designed to maximize despair. There are 12 of these installations in our galaxy, Siwu continued. The Devourers have been building them for thousands of years. They represent the accumulated suffering of entire civilizations. President Namgil looked at the images with eyes full of rage. Then we'll destroy them all, every single one. Admiral Youngsu nodded. Sir, this will require our entire fleet. We'll be committing everything to these operations. Good, the President replied. It's time the Devourers learned what happens when you make humanity truly angry. The orders went out across human space. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier would be committed to the liberation of the primary feeding stations. It would be the largest military operation in human history. As the fleets assembled, Commander So Young received a message from Veltar, the old Keth Mori she had rescued at Vega. He had been working with other freed prisoners to provide intelligence about Devourer operations. Commander, my people have a saying. In the darkest night, even the smallest light can guide you home. Your species has become that light for all of us. Whatever happens in the battles to come, know that you have already saved us in the most important way. You have given us hope. So Young smiled as she prepared her ships for the next phase of the war. Humanity had started this conflict as abandoned miners and farmers. Now they were becoming the galaxy's liberators. The hunt was about to become something much bigger. 2 years into the war, the Devourers made their biggest mistake. They had studied human tactics and decided that humanity was just another species to be consumed. They would end the problem by destroying Earth itself and the source of human resistance. The Devourer High Command gathered their main fleet from across the galaxy. 3 billion bioships, each one capable of eating a city, moved toward the Sol system. It was enough firepower to consume 100 worlds. Admiral Taehyun waited for them with humanity's entire remaining fleet. He had 50,000 ships and 4 billion humans ready to defend their homeworld. The numbers were hopeless. But no, one talked about surrendering. The alien species monitoring from Andromeda Galaxy expected to watch humanity's final extinction within hours. The Velnarian Kethmori, who had abandoned Earth 2 years earlier, prepared to witness the end of the species they had dismissed as too primitive to save. Instead, they saw something that challenged everything they thought they knew about: warfare and evolution. Humanity had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. Earth itself had been turned into a weapon. The planet's magnetic field had been modified using every piece of technology humans could build or steal. When activated, it would create electromagnetic pulses powerful enough to disrupt Devourer nervous systems across the entire solar system. Luna, Earth's moon, had been hollowed out and converted into the largest kinetic bombardment platform ever built. Massive railguns could fire projectiles at near light speed. The entire surface was covered with launch tubes that could deliver millions of rounds per minute. Mars had become a supply depot and ammunition factory. Every mountain had been carved out and filled with weapons, supplies, and angry humans ready to die fighting. But the most terrifying weapon wasn't mechanical. It was biological. Dr. Yoonji had made a final discovery about Devourer psychology. They didn't just feed on emotions through their prisoners. They could sense the feelings of all, living beings within several light years. Their entire hunting strategy was based on following the fear and despair of their prey. Admiral Taehyun, we can turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness, she explained in the final briefing before battle. How? 3 billion. Humans have volunteered for neural broadcasting. We're going to flood local space with the most concentrated human emotion possible. Fear? Dr. Yoonji smiled grimly. No, sir. Pure, undiluted rage. The volunteers had been preparing for months. Using technology adapted from Devourer bioships, they would broadcast their emotions directly into space. Every angry thought, every desire for revenge, every memory of friends and family killed by the Devourers would be transmitted at full strength. When the Devourer fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they expected to sense the usual fear from a population about to be consumed. Instead, they encountered something that made their entire collective consciousness recoil in shock. The emotional signature coming from the Sol system wasn't fear or despair. It was hatred so pure and concentrated that it caused physical pain. To every Devourer within 10 light years, Admiral Tae-hyun gave the order to begin the battle at exactly noon, Earth time. The modified magnetic field activated first. The electromagnetic pulse hit the Devourer fleet like a wall of invisible fire. Bioships that had never felt pain in millions of years suddenly experienced agony beyond their understanding. Luna's railguns opened fire next. Millions of kinetic projectiles streaked across space, each one carrying recordings of human voices expressing pure hatred for the Devourers. The combined electromagnetic and psychological assault was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The 3 billion volunteers began their neural broadcast. Their combined rage created a psychic storm that reached across the solar system. Devourer. Bioships designed to feed on negative emotions began consuming something that was literally toxic to their systems. For the first time in their species' existence, the Devourers experienced terror. The battle lasted for 36 hours. Human ships died by the thousands, but they kept fighting. Every explosion carried the screams of angry humans into the void. Every missile broadcast the fury of a species that refused to surrender. Captain Daeho, now commanding a battleship, called the Righteous Anger, led the final assault on the Devourer command vessel. It was a bioship the size of a small moon, protected by thousands of smaller vessels. This is for every human child they took, he announced over the fleet communication network. This is for every world they consumed. This is for every species they enslaved. His ship rammed directly into the command vessel's hull. The explosion could be seen from Earth's surface, a brief star that marked the death of the Devourer fleet commander and the human captain who killed him. When the battle ended, the Sol system was littered with the wreckage of both fleets. Humanity had lost 90% of its ships and 2 million soldiers. But the Devourer main fleet was completely destroyed. More importantly, the survivors were fleeing. For the first time in galactic history, the Devourers were retreating not to regroup, but because they were afraid. The psychological impact reached across the galaxy instantly. Devourer bioships everywhere began receiving the death screams of their main fleet. The emotion that had powered their species for millions of years was replaced by something they had never experienced. Fear of their prey. Lieutenant Jae Min, who had survived the battle aboard a rescue ship, watched the Devourer retreat with amazement. Sir, they're not just leaving the Sol system. They're fleeing toward the galactic edge. Engineer Saiwoo, monitoring communications from his command post on Mars, intercepted desperate Devourer transmissions. Admiral, they're abandoning feeding stations across the galaxy. Their entire strategy seems to be falling apart. The victory at Sol had broken more than just the Devourer main fleet. It had broken their confidence and their understanding of the universe. They had encountered something that challenged their most basic assumptions about the nature of predator and prey. President Namgil's broadcast that night reached every corner of the galaxy, including the fleeing Devourers. To the creatures that thought they could consume humanity, you have learned that some prey fights back. You have discovered that some species get stronger when threatened. You have experienced what it feels like to be hunted. His voice grew colder. But this is not over. You have caused suffering across millions of worlds for millions of years. You have enslaved entire species and fed on their despair. Justice demands payment. The message ended with words that would echo across galactic history. We are coming. For you. All of you. Wherever you run, wherever you hide, we will find you. This galaxy is under human protection now, and we take that responsibility seriously. In the weeks following the Battle of Sol, something unprecedented happened. Species that had been hiding from the Devourers for centuries began emerging from their shelters. Civilizations that had thought themselves doomed started sending messages to Earth. All of them carried the same basic message. They wanted to know how humanity had achieved the impossible. The answer was simple, but it would reshape galactic civilization forever. Humanity had discovered that rage, properly focused, was more powerful than any weapon ever created. And they were very, very good at being angry. The Battle of Sol marked the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before: the Great Pursuit. Humanity didn't celebrate their victory or tend to their wounds. Instead, they followed the fleeing Devourers across space like an unstoppable force of nature. Captain Yejin commanded the first pursuit fleet to leave the Sol system. Her ships were built for long-range hunting, equipped with improved sensors and weapons designed specifically for tracking fleeing Devourers across interstellar space. They think they can run, she told her crew as they left Earth's orbit. They think if they get far enough away, we'll give up and go home. They don't understand humanity very well. The pursuit fleets found something that amazed even veteran human soldiers. The Devourers weren't just fleeing randomly. They were heading toward specific coordinates outside the galaxy, following ancient paths through intergalactic space. Dr. Yunji, now serving as chief xenobiologist for the pursuit operations, made a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. Captain Yejin, I've been analyzing the trajectory data. The Devourers aren't just from outside our galaxy, they're from outside our local group of galaxies entirely. She activated a holographic display showing the cosmic neighborhood around the Milky Way. Red lines trace the Devourers' path backward through space and time. They've been traveling for millions of years, consuming galaxy after galaxy. Our galaxy wasn't their first conquest. It was just the latest in a long series of hunting grounds. The implications were staggering. The Devourers had destroyed dozens of galaxies, each one containing billions of worlds and trillions of sentient beings. The scope of their crimes was beyond human understanding, but humanity's response was characteristically simple. If the Devourers had committed genocide on a galactic scale, then justice would be delivered on the same scale. Fleet Admiral Boram, who had been promoted after her heroic actions during the early stages of the war, was given command of the largest military operation in galactic history. Every human ship, every weapon, every soldier would be committed to following the Devourers back to their origin point. We're not just fighting for our galaxy anymore, she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. We're fighting for every galaxy they've destroyed, every species they've enslaved, every world they've consumed. The Great Pursuit lasted 3 years. Human fleets followed Devourer trails across the void between galaxies, through regions of space where no sentient being had ever traveled. They found the remnants of consumed civilizations scattered across millions of light years. The evidence of Devourer crimes was overwhelming. Dead galaxies reduced to cosmic dust, massive feeding stations containing the preserved remains of billions of sentient beings, bioships filled with prisoners from species that had been extinct for millennia. Engineer Siwu, now coordinating intelligence for the entire pursuit operation, mapped the full extent of Devourer territory. What he found made even hardened human soldiers pause in shock. Admiral Boram, we've identified 47 completely consumed galaxies and partial destruction in over 200 others. The Devourers have been active for at least 10 million years. The scale of destruction was beyond comprehension, but it only made humanity more determined. Every new discovery of Devourer atrocities increased their rage and strengthened their resolve. The pursuit fleets also made an unexpected discovery. They weren't alone in their hunt. Species from consumed galaxies who had somehow survived were joining the human fleet. Beings who had hidden in deep space or remote star systems for millions of years emerged to fight alongside humanity. An ancient creature called Thekmor, one of the last survivors of a galaxy consumed 5 million years earlier, became Admiral Boram's advisor. His species had been hunted almost to extinction, but they had spent millennia studying devourer weaknesses. "Your people have accomplished what we thought impossible," he told her during one of their strategy meetings. "You have made the devourers afraid, but fear alone will not stop them. They will recover and adapt unless you strike at their source." "What do you mean?" "Every devourer bioship, every spawn, every consciousness, traces back to a single origin point. The first queen, the original organism that began their species. She still lives at the heart of their empire. The location was a dead galaxy in the Virgo supercluster, completely consumed and converted into a massive biomechanical construct. At its center was a creature older than most stars, the source of every devourer that had ever existed. The final battle would take place at the birth world of nightmares. Admiral Boram gathered every human ship for the assault. 10,000 vessels carrying 5 million of the angriest humans in the universe approached the devourer homeworld. They brought weapons powered by pure human rage and broadcast equipment that could project their hatred across an entire galaxy. The first queen's defenses were beyond description. Billions of bioships arranged in concentric spheres around a planet-sized organism that had been feeding on captured civilizations for 10 million years. The psychic emanations from the creature were so powerful that they could drive most sentient beings insane. But humanity had learned something important during their war with the Devourers. Their rage was not just an emotion, it was a force of nature that could reshape reality itself. "All ships, this is Admiral Boram. Today, we end 10 million years of suffering. Today we deliver justice for every species they've destroyed. Today we show the universe that some things cannot be forgiven." The battle began with the largest electromagnetic pulse ever generated. Every human ship fired simultaneously, creating a wave of energy that traveled at light speed toward the Devourer homeworld. The pulse carried the combined hatred of 5 million humans, focused and concentrated into a weapon that could crack planets. The first queen's scream when the wave hit her was heard across 3 galaxies. For the first time in 10 million years, the source of the Devourer plague experienced genuine agony. The assault continued for 18 hours. Human ships died by the thousands, but they kept coming. Every explosion carried the voices of dead civilizations crying out for vengeance. Every missile broadcast the fury of species that had been extinct for millions of years. Captain Deho, who had survived the war from beginning to end, led the final assault on the first queen herself. His ship, rebuilt and renamed the Final, Justice, carried the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. It wasn't a bomb or an energy weapon. It was a concentrated broadcast of human memory and emotion. Every genocide the Devourers had committed, every species they had enslaved, every world they had consumed, all of it focused into a psychic payload that would force the first queen to experience the suffering she had caused. "This is for every child you took," Captain Deho said as his ship approached the massive creature. "This is for every world you destroyed. This is for every species you thought was too weak to matter." The weapon activated at point-blank range. The first queen, who had never felt empathy or remorse, was suddenly overwhelmed by the accumulated pain of her victims. 10 million years of suffering crashed down on her consciousness simultaneously. She died not from physical damage, but from experiencing what she had done to others. The death of the first queen triggered a cascade reaction across the Devourer empire. Every bioship, every spawn, every consciousness connected to her began dying simultaneously. Within hours, a plague that had consumed galaxies for 10 million years was completely extinct. When the surviving human fleets returned to the Milky Way, they found a galaxy transformed. The alien species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now waited respectfully at the edge of human space, requesting permission to return to their former territories. The Velnari ambassador, the same being who had declared humans too primitive to save, approached Admiral Youngsu with a formal request. "Honored Admiral, on behalf of the Velnari Empire, I request permission to resettle our former worlds under human protection." Admiral Youngsu studied the alien who had condemned his species to death just 5 years earlier. His response was, delivered calmly but firmly, "The Velnari Empire no longer exists. You abandoned your worlds and your responsibilities when you fled the galaxy. If you wish to resettle, you will do so as individual refugees under human authority. President Daun, who had replaced Namgil after his death in the pursuit operations, addressed the galaxy from Earth. To all species seeking to return to our galaxy, you are welcome, but you will follow human law. We will not tolerate the kind of abandonment and cowardice that left billions to die when the Devourers arrived. She paused, looking directly at the alien ambassadors. Humanity has learned that we cannot depend on others for our survival or the survival of those under our protection. This galaxy is now under human authority, and that authority will be exercised responsibly, but absolutely. The transformation was complete. In 5 years, humanity had evolved from abandoned miners to the galaxy's dominant species. They had not just defeated an existential threat, but had become something new in the process. The final chapter of the war was written in the liberated territories throughout the galaxy. Billions of enslaved beings were freed from devourer feeding chambers and given new homes under human protection. Species that had been considered extinct were restored to thriving populations.